So today we are with Mark Smith from Information Security Operations. Hi, Mark.
Hi.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and your career at Microsoft?
Okay. I've been here just over 15 years. 10 of those have been with Information Security. However, the whole time I've been with Microsoft IT.
Oh, I see. So working with security all along.
Most of the time.
Good. So tell us about your current team and the role and some of the missions that you guys have.
Sure. Our team supports dog fooding, but our focus is on security. So we've got a number of groups with information security that support dog fooding. The first team is the ACE team. They do the design reviews for the deployments. The second team is the strategic planning group, who is part of operations. They do the security feature assessments and the strategy planning for those features and products. Okay. And lastly is the operations team, who is also part of the compliance team that is also part of operations, and they're responsible for compliance, remediation, and reporting for the dog food programs.
Good. Dog fooding is the current topic lately, and it's a big program in a big company. How do you guys got involved with the product groups and started to embed security in the process?
Well, security is part of a bigger program called MSIT's First and Best. That's Microsoft's formal program to ensure that all dog food programs get the end-to-end support that is needed on these things. We are one component of those. Okay. We developed our own process when asked by that team, and we became part of that program just about a year ago.
Does all products go through the dog fooding security assessments that you guys do?
Yes, any program that's in the MSIT dog food program must make a mandatory stop through our process.
Good. So what happens? What happens when a product gets into your hands? Can you walk us a little bit about that process?
So the first thing we do is evaluate all the features in the product. We look at not only the security features, but all the features, and the ones that MSIT plans to deploy and eventually support in our production environment will go to our security design review process, and that's supported by the ACE team. The specific security features will go to our strategic planning team, and they will look at each feature to determine its potential security business value to IT, and they will begin to plan on how we would use those and how we deploy those, why and where, in order to support the shared goal process as part of the overall program.
So can you elaborate more on the security design review process along with the strategic planning that's going on?
Sure. So when it comes to the ACE team, they do their security design reviews with the intention of identifying deployment risk, specifically around infrastructure changes and the use of new features that might introduce new vulnerabilities or new risks. We don't look at the actual product code. We're not looking at any risk around that area because that's generally already done by the product group in their threat modeling and their SWI process. So the goal of the design review team, again, is to identify deployment risk, and they attempt to address the risk and work with the teams. The last thing they want to do is to slow down or hinder the deployment in any way, so they will work with the teams to mitigate those risks while continuing the deployment cycle without slowing it down at all. The opportunity area that the strategic planning team does, they're looking at ways they're always looking at ways to reduce risk here at Microsoft, and we have our top risks identified. So when they're doing their evaluation of these product features, the security features, they have that in mind. They're thinking, how can we continue to reduce our big risks at Microsoft? So for the opportunity, we're looking at the security features, specifically with the top risks that we've identified here at Microsoft. We want to understand and learn what these new products will provide in terms of ways to reduce risk. So we want to leverage and showcase these new features and take advantage of any opportunity we get to employ new security features. So that's what the strategy planning team is looking at. They evaluate the features, they compare them to the risk, and they'll begin to plan the specific details through position papers, assessment and recommendation papers on how we'd use these, where we'd use these, and why we would use these features.
Good. So after you guys have assessed the features, look at it from the point of view of deployment on the IT environment, enterprise level. So what happens? What happens with the feedback that you get from these products?
Well, we take, once we have determined the security features that we want to use, we'll work with the MSID deployment team to create shared goals to ensure that we get those deployed and tested and trialed pre-production. And at that point, we will determine if the product is usable in terms of security, if it makes sense to use it. If it needs some changes, we'll communicate that back to the from the product group. And we'll usually do that through the DCR process. But it's usually a general dialogue is ongoing between us and the product security group to exchange ideas and feedback about the security features.
And how early are you guys involved with the product release? Is it at the beta level or before then?
Generally, we want it as soon as possible, which is pre-beta, even pre-alpha, if we can, because we get an opportunity to influence the product at that point before it gets too baked, if you will, as a product. So yeah, the sooner the better. But sometimes it comes in a little bit later, and our options are a little more limited in terms of the influence we can have on the product. So
that makes sense. So what has been any success stories so far? How have you been?
Let's take Windows 7, for example, BitLocker.
Yeah.
A great security feature. We're doing a lot of planning and deployment planning around this feature. It was originally developed in Vista, and it was great then, but it's gotten even better now, and a lot of that, I think, is due to the feedback that we were able to provide the product group during the Vista dogfooding and our production deployment of BitLocker. So we've seen a lot of improvements, and we've had an opportunity to dogfood those, and we're getting ready to deploy those now. So.
Great. I've been hearing a lot of feedback from Windows 7, and it's mainly how security is by default, and that's, I guess this is thanks to the feedback collected from this dogfooding process.
Yep.
So are there any key takeaways that you want to share with your users? Because I'm sure some of the viewers might be even from smaller companies that are trying to deploy their products, or even enterprise level. Anything you want to share?
Yeah. First thing I would say, to establish a formal program that supports new technology deployments in your company or your environments. Secondly, I would say promote a partnership mentality between those that are developing and creating the products or the technology with those who are planning to deploy the technology. And that should really materialize in the form of shared goals, which is kind of a contract between the two organizations. That way both have a vested interest in supporting the effort, and both will benefit from it. And then lastly, I would highly recommend that you never compromise security for the sake of rushing out and testing new products and features. Always adhere to your risk avoidance procedures, as well as adhering to your policies and your company's policies and standards.
Well, that sounds like success to me. So thanks, Mark. Thanks for the time that you let us share some stories about dogfooding, and I know that it's one of those key topics that people ask about Microsoft, how well we manage it, and I think you just gave great examples. So thanks for your time, and we look forward to a series of videos with the rest of your team.
You're welcome. Thanks.